Hello, everybody. Welcome on back to Fantasy Football Futures. My name is Tyler,
My name is Tim.
and we are getting back into the fantasy football season of 2022. Tim, it's great to be back.
Glad to be back. Ready for football. I know it's middle of June, but glad to be back talking football again.
That's a figure with OTAs and everything coming back. It's time. Mini camps coming around the corner. It's time to kind of dive in. Looking forward to this upcoming season. And with doing that, I figured we start with just divisions, going over each division, kind of players we like, don't like, etc. And there's no better place to start this year, I think, other than with the Super Bowl champs over in the NFC West with the Rams. A lot of roster stuff went on this season. NFL, the draft was crazy. Lots of trades.
Very interesting year, I'll have to say. A lot of moves happened.
Early too. So, and not just any moves, like big names. A lot of people moving around. Kind of surprises in there that I didn't expect, which we'll kind of go into later. But then a lot too, like there was a lot of free agents this year that got moved around and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens this year. But looking at it now, let's go ahead and jump right into the NFC West breakdown this year. Looking at the Rams here, you have probably the biggest surprise of last year, Cooper Kupp coming in, absolutely dominating all fantasy football, was just unstoppable. Nobody could guard him. He just turned it on, did whatever. It was clear cut the number one player overall in fantasy, especially at the wide receiver position. And they solidified him by extending him this offseason to stay with Matthew Stafford, which I think is, I don't know where the Rams keep getting all this money to sign everybody, but huge keep for them. And especially, with what Stafford and Kupp built last year in that short amount of time, I can only imagine what year two is going to look like in the system with them.
Yeah, the Rams just can't keep making it a future problem. Keep spending the money. Cooper Kupp got paid a lot of money. Aaron Donald signed. They still got a lot of money on the books. So
yeah,
don't know where they're getting it from, but Stan Kroenke is writing his checkbook a lot.
Stan Kroenke, worst human ever alive. Just gonna throw that out there.
100%.
If he went missing tomorrow, would not care. It's just one of those things with him. But yeah, it's just like going forward with the Rams. You look at Cooper Kupp. I don't see anybody who's going to step in, even be close to taking that role. There's no chance they are, but just because of how they utilize him too. Mm-hmm. They just move them around a lot, and they're just adding pieces still. Like, I know the big offseason signing they had, I think is a bigger one than what people talk about, is actually Allen Robinson joining them. Plagued by injuries last year, terrible system with Matt Nagy, rotating quarterbacks. Allen Robinson had a really down year, but if you look at his numbers from previous years, he was a player that would put up consistent numbers each year in and out. I think he had like 5 straight seasons of 1,000 yards before last year. Mm-hmm. And it's just, to me, I think he's not what he used to be, but number 2 or even a possible number 3 if they too sign OBJ again, we'll be interested to see, but I think he will benefit well with Cooper Kupp, another great route runner. But I just don't see how like a guy like Allen Robinson, especially fantasy purposes, overtakes anybody. He's like a low-end flex play, I think, for going forward with the Rams, just like Odell kind of was at the end of last year.
Yeah, I think with Odell and with Robert Woods getting out, I think that helped Odell.
Yeah.
That's why they got Odell, to be honest. I'm not 100% on this Allen Robinson train. I'm probably more on Van Jefferson than Allen Robinson, but I'm actually very interested to see, because for Robinson, it was always he has no one around him. He has a bad QB. He has a terrible coach. And so now he's put on the best offensive team, arguably the best offensive team. And if he doesn't produce, then that's 100% on him. Then that means he's going downhill in his career. But he has the chance to turn around, and so should be a pretty interesting year for him. He's getting drafted around like the 7th round.
That's what
I think that's a little too high, but I'm ready for him to prove me wrong. I like Allen Robinson; he's a good dude, but I'm more on Van Jefferson than him this year, I think.
That's what I feel like. I agree. Like Van Jefferson, I think also throws in that dynamic deep ball factor, which we saw last year play a lot. You have a lot of boomer bust performances with Van Jefferson, but you take that because he is the big hitter for them, especially if they lose OBJ. I think it only picks up for Van because he's been in the system, he knows it, and I think they'll put him number 2 over Robinson. But I also think Robinson is a sneaky, like he's a very low end type flex, and like you said, 7th round, I still think it's a little too high. But like if you can get him late, why not steal him late to either sit? Because you never know what can happen, injuries, anything, what they can build going forward, and especially if even if they sign OBJ, he's still towards ACL, I believe, in the Super Bowl, so he's not coming back for a couple months. So
yeah, I don't know, because it's just more like you think teams can find a way to stop Cooper Kupp, and if they do, are you going to rely on this running game? They're very questionable with Cam Akers, Dale Henderson, or are you going to rely more on like Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, and Tyler Higbee? So it's going to be pretty interesting. Cooper Kupp was able to defeat any defense pretty much he played. We're going to see if he can do that back-to-back years.
Drove me nuts. Like you would, you just can't stop him. You know the ball's going to him. You know he's gonna do whatever and gonna get open. So I need to tip your cap to him. I see again, he's 100% gonna be the first receiver off the board in my opinion, especially with Adams moving away from Rodgers. And what he did last year, I don't see why he would slow down. It's going in his 7th year, and after putting up numbers like that and getting Stafford back is huge. And then also you kind of you can argue that they are also getting probably a more reliable run game this year than they did last year, because with Cam Akers coming back towards Achilles last year, ended up coming back and making a run to play in the playoffs. He actually didn't look terrible for a guy coming off an Achilles injury. And I know with McVay, he likes to run the ball more often than not run the ball. So look for Cam Akers to kind of be a lower guy that people forget about and maybe drops a 3rd or 4th round this year. I think that would be a good pickup for Cam. He's only coming his 3rd year. I know he had injuries last year, but remember the coming on, he was going to be projected 2nd round last year. The coming on late in his rookie year really helped. I think he's going to pick off where he left off. He's great at running the football. He can catch the ball as well. But you just got to look at who they picked up in the draft with Kyren Williams from Notre Dame too, who's pretty athletic as well.
Yeah, with Cam Akers, it's always a little bit scary coming off that injury and him able to come back at the end of the season. Had a little bit of the fumbled a few of those playoff games. I really don't worry about that, just because you're coming back. You're playing actually against really good running defenses.
Yes.
You have to remember, he played the Bucs, he played the 49ers. Cincinnati, they weren't great against the run, but they're still, I think they're decent. So it wasn't anything that he was like, oh, Cam Akers is going to carry this offense.
Yeah.
So I think with a full offseason, OTA stays healthy, just getting stronger, I really think Cam Akers could really be a really good running back out of this backfield.
That's what I think. It'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. I just think he'll be fine. And the only thing you can argue is running back by committees, which everybody's going to in the NFL. But I think the Rams they're more of they'll ride one guy and then kind of rotate it. I think Sony Michel was different with him going to Miami now. It's going to look a little different back there. It's just the one thing I do worry about is the running back from Notre Dame that they picked up can run the ball. He had 1,000 yards rushing, 500 yards receiving. So he can do whatever. So that would just be one area to kind of check to see, but one guy who might take some reps, and then Darrell Henderson goal line. But I don't really see too much with that. And then of course, Matthew Stafford moving forward.
I can almost see Kyren Williams taking over. Darrell Henderson likes to get injured a lot. I can see maybe later in the season, if Darrell Henderson gets hurt, Kyren gets a couple of those carries, looks pretty good. I can see him being that number 2 back.
Yep. And then Matt Stafford, where do you think he finishes this year among quarterbacks?
Among quarterbacks, I think he's top 10. I want to say that 7-8 range. That's what
I was going to say. I don't see him sneaking in the top 5, but I mean, unless McVay decides we're going to throw the ball a lot more and start utilizing that. His big thing is just he throws a lot of interceptions, which you've known. It is what it is. But the Rams team, like you said, got a lot of people back moving forward. Tight end wise, they don't really have much.
Higbee and like I said, it's with Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, if the whole wide receiver core can stay healthy, I don't see Higbee being someone you can rely on. Maybe a spot start against a team that's very bad against tight ends, and you need a tight end. But I think for right now, I'm staying away from Higbee.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. Is Higbee still with the Rams, or did he get moved?
He's still on their depth chart.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, he's one. He had good games, bad games. Tight ends are just so far few and in between. It's just hard to even do anything with it. So
I feel like Blanton, he stepped up a little bit when Higbee was out, and I can see him maybe taking a couple more reps from Higbee as well. So
yeah, and they drafted a rookie. They picked up some rookies, so you never know how those are going to turn out. So, Rams wise, Cooper Kupp main pickup. I think Cam Akers is going to be a low end, like running back that might drop later. Solely because right now I think wide receivers are more valued than maybe like once you get past 5 running backs, maybe in fantasy football, they're kind of a few and far in between. Like there's not much to go because all these running back by committees are just getting crazy, and that's what like everybody wants to go to just to make sure everybody stays healthy. So don't blame him, but yeah.
He's actually going in the 4th round right now, early the 4th round. Projected over 1,000 yards rushing, 41 catches. I can see him getting pushed, like you said, with the running backs. I can see him being pushed to like the into the 3rd round, especially once there's more drafts. Everyone kind of starts drafting a little bit more. I really see that push of him being a 3rd round running back taken.
That's what it's just. It'll be interesting to see kind of what happens with him going forward. But I think Cooper Kupp's a lot. Van Jefferson, low end flex. I think flex play kind of reserve on your bench. Matchup plays big time going forward. And then you really, Allen Robinson will probably be free agent for most people. You might pick him up late, but he's one I think you need to keep an eye on just going forward, just to see what McVay can do with him.
Right now, Allen Robinson's being taken in the end of the 6th round.
See, and that's solely because of who
Van Jefferson is 19th round. So I think you might be able to get Van Jefferson really late. And like you said, that's almost a spot start. Really good matchup. I don't think you can rely on Van Jefferson to keep doing that, but
it was like last year with him. I
just see him having a step up than what he did last year.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to kind of see going forward. Once we jump into mock drafts and everything, we can kind of look at see where everybody's going and looking at schedules and seeing. So that was the Rams. Was there any big news or anything we missed with the Rams? I don't think so. I think that was it. I know Robert Woods is gone.
Yeah, it was mainly just Allen Robinson and then just Cooper Kupp getting paid, Aaron Donald getting paid, everybody's getting paid. So
question mark
they're Super Bowl champions. You don't change up a whole lot of things when you're Super Bowl champ.
The big question mark will be is if OBJ comes back, he'll change something, if anything. So that's just something to keep an eye on for. Then let's go to the other team in the NFC West that had a huge offseason, trading away their golden boy, Russell Wilson, Seattle Seahawks, going to Denver. And in return, they got Drew Lock, one of your favorite players of all time. And then they also got Noah Fant, who came over in that trade as well, and then some draft picks and everything. Looking at Seattle, with Drew Lock at the helm of the offense, do you trust DK and Tyler Lockett anymore?
They're still going to get their what they want. I know DK, he's having those issues, not showing up to. Did DK show up to minicamp or did he show up to OTAs?
No, he did not.
I don't think so because
he's still working on his contract.
He's still trying to reach a deal. I think DK Metcalf will be fine. I don't know why, but I just think Tyler Lockett's the one that gets hurt here. I just think that DK, I don't like Drew Lock at all. I think he's going to be a bad quarterback. He's going to try to get the ball out of his hands, and he's going to see DK Metcalf, the big guy downfield, and he's going to throw to him a lot. I think this is going to be more DK Metcalf. He's going to get paid, and I think if anyone gets hurt, it's Tyler Lockett. Knowing how I make projections, it's going to be the exact opposite. Tyler Lockett's going to have the season of his life. And DK Metcalf is going to be not very good. But I was going to actually ask you this. How confident are you in Noah Fant? Drew Lock comes over with him. Drew Lock knows Noah Fant. He's worked with him in practice for a couple of years now. Like, I feel like, especially at the beginning of the season, that's going to be his go-to guy, like kind of a safety net.
And I feel like,
but he also hasn't had a DK Metcalf and Lockett like Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. That's not like, these are better wide receivers. So you think he'll try to do that more, or he'll go to the safety blanket a little bit? I think he will, especially earlier in the season.
Well, that's why I think Noah Fant, this might be his reliance early. Like, if you look at him last year to end the season, he had, with Lock playing quarterback, 5 receptions, 3 receptions, 6 receptions. So the looks were there. And he had his biggest game in week 17 with 6 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Noah Fant, to me, is one of the more athletic tight ends in the league. His biggest notch is just he can't stay healthy.
It's he gets injured way too much.
But I think if we've always heard Seattle wants to be that run first team, and they couldn't do that with Russell because it's Russell. You need to. He is a great quarterback. You need him to throw the football and do all that. But I think a big question mark is going to be are they going to run the football? I think Noah Fant will be utilized more in the short passing game. DK, I think, like you said, DK will still get his, but he's not a top tier wide receiver like he was viewed as last year with Russell. And Tyler Lockett, like we've talked about last year, even he'd have those big games, those slow games. It just really depended. Last year, I think, was probably his most consistent year since he's I feel like in fantasy since I can remember. It's just he was more the number one for them last year. He's just more the deep ball threat and everything. But with Drew Lock, I just don't see how anybody in their team's really going to step up and be huge contributors in fantasy. Where you can take them late, but I wouldn't worry too much about what these guys are going to do moving forward with Drew Lock. And even if Geno Smith is the guy too, it's just going to be, to me, it's going to be a tough look for them trying to figure out what they're going to look like going forward. And then Chris Carson, injury prone as well. I think he's I'm pretty sure from what I read, he's still maybe not going to make the start to the year because of that neck injury that he had.
He might not. He might be done.
That's what I was thinking. People have talked and mentioned that we're looking at maybe him being just retired and heading out of the league and moving on. So, Seattle with Rashad Penny, you thought maybe stepping up going to be the new guy, but they actually went and got Kenneth Walker from Michigan State, who I think was one of the better running backs in college football from last year. Just going to be tough seeing what he does with a team like this. Seattle's offensive line has always plagued them, and that's where they really fall down. But do you think Kenneth Walker, he's kind of projected towards 5th round, 6th round. Are you going to take a chance on Kenneth Walker this year?
I wouldn't do the 4th or 5th round, but if I'm 7th, 8th round and I have 2 running backs, I think I'd go for him. I think Rashad Penny's a very good running back. He just gets hurt all the time. He can catch. Yeah. I think if you would be Rashad Penny will play all 17 games this year, I'd be give me Rashad Penny. I would love Rashad Penny, but he goes in these spurts. Will have 2 good games and he's out for 4 or 5. So I think when he's out for that, that's when Kenneth Walker steps up. Even if Chris Carson comes back, I think that's when Walker steps up, becomes the number 1 back. And Geno Smith, Drew Lock, doesn't matter who's back there. They're going to need someone to dump the ball off to, someone to help him out. And I think with a first-year running back, you'll see with Najee Harris, they're in trouble.
Utilize him quickly.
Just dump it, just utilize him. And I think that's where he comes into play. I don't feel great about it. I'm not saying get Kenneth Walker. He's going to be rookie of the year. Need to start him, but I think you get him in the middle of October, November when running backs really starting to get hurt. You need someone. I can see him definitely stepping up because this Seahawks team is going to be bad. They're going to be the last in this division. They're going to want to see some of the rookie guys, someone to show the Seahawks that they're the Seahawks fans that they're trying, and putting him out there, someone that they can fall in love with. I think that you might see that down the road.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Pete Carroll, never have been. I just don't like the way his teams have looked. I've always thought Russell Wilson and his system was just he'd have 5 great games and that's it for the year, and that's what he'd do all stats with.
Pete Carroll be the coach at the last game of the season for the Seahawks?
I don't know. They're so weird because they trade away Russ, but they're not willing to look at getting rid of like Lockett or Metcalf right now. I think if you're willing to get rid of him, their front office hasn't really changed much over the last year or two. It's all the same, like need offensive line. Okay. They just lost Bobby Wagner too. But to me, it's just I don't see him. I think they're coming close to it all being done, but I think you got to give him a chance to see what he does with Locke and then see what they do in the draft, who they try to get. Because I'm surprised they weren't trying to get Baker or anything too right now. So they're just going to ride Drew Lock and
what
see.
I heard, it sounds like the Panthers are really trying to go for Baker right now. So
yeah, that's what I saw too.
I've even heard like if that can't get done, the Browns will drop Baker, and I've also heard the 49ers might drop Jimmy G too.
That's what I know, because we'll just perfect segue on in here to the 49ers. Then looking at it, he's been hurt. He hasn't shown up to minicamp OTAs, but I think pretty much what we've heard is Trey Lance is probably going to be the starter for this year, which to me, I think is one of the bigger moves for fantasy this year. I think he won't be able to produce running numbers like Lamar, not even close.
Kyler.
Or Kyler. I think he'll be a little bit better runner than Kyler this year solely because of how young he is. He's going to run the ball. He's going to move a lot. He's a big dude. I look at him kind of falling into maybe finishing top 10 solely because of his leg purposes. And then if you throw in Debo in there as well with Brandon Ayuk and those players coming back and
George Kittle,
I just think it's a system built for him to kind of build off that. We saw it last year with them where they're more run first team with him. But I think him getting some game time experience helped a lot, and I could see him slipping into top 10 fantasy football wise this year because of the weapons he has around him and what he can do with his legs running the football.
Yeah, I'm kind of almost on the take that Trey Lance might have the best finish at fantasy quarterback in this division. Like I really like Trey Lance. I really liked some parts of his game last year. He didn't get a lot of opportunities. 49ers were kind of going back and forth, and I'm pretty sure he got hurt for a while.
Yeah,
too,
he did. He's smashed his thumb or something.
Give him a full season. I'm hoping his running backs can stay healthy. Debo comes back, and I think that's where he'll be really good. I think that's where he takes that next step. Maybe not the top finish that probably Stafford may beat him, but I think you can have a better year than Kyler Murray. Like he's in a better team on a better headspace. Kyler Murray there's a lot going on right now, and I think that's going to maybe hurt him a little bit. And I think that's where Trey Lance steps up and becomes the best running quarterback in this division, and I either finishes first or second behind Matt Stafford.
Okay, yeah, that's what I could see that, especially with who he's got around him and everything. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward what it looks like. And then kind of looking at running back wise. You got Elijah Mitchell coming back off that huge year, unsurprisingly being the guy for San Francisco that we did not think was going to happen. They're still thinking he's going to come back as a top guy. He did have some cleanup surgery on his knee about 2-3 months ago, but I don't see that being too much of a problem. I think he's still going to step in, be that number one guy and do what he needs to do. Trey Sermon, I don't really know what they're going to do with him. It's kind of weird to see what happens. But they did draft.
I think Trey Sermon's done.
That was the weirdest thing. Like, to me, he must just not be picking up plays, because I thought last year he was going to step in that system and be great with who was it? Raheem Mostert at first, but I don't really know. It'll be interesting to see what they do, because you got them, and then Mostert's now gone, and then they picked up another running back in the third round, or with the 93rd pick this year, to kind of see what happens. He's was at LSU and had a pretty solid year last year, so I'll be interested to see kind of what they're going to do with that, and see if they kind of go to that two-back set, because to be honest with you, with the 49ers in the past, it's been a lot of injuries at the running back position.
Yeah, that's on the depth chart. They have Trey Sermon at 4.
Yeah, I saw that. It's like,
so I think that's where they drafted Davis Price for 4, is because, like you said, they've been so injured in this backfield. You don't know who's going to be starting week to week. Elijah Mitchell is definitely the number one. Proved it last year. But then you also have Jeff Wilson there too, who people thought before. What was about to say?
Could have been easily. I remember there were a couple weeks they're like, "Oh, Jeff Wilson's going to take over the role. He's going to do this." So they're not hurting for backups. It's just, I think outside of Elijah Mitchell, it's kind of going to be a wash. And then one guy to keep your eye on is the Price from LSU that they drafted. Just kind of see what he's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I like Elijah Mitchell, and it's almost just going to be. I think the other 3 are going to be on the waiver wire all year, and if anything gets hurt, that's when you go pick those guys up. Unless you have Elijah Mitchell, I don't think you can stash any of the 3 other guys.
Well, that's what I think. If you take Mitchell, you stash Price as a backup just to kind of hold, because Mitchell did get hurt a lot last year, so it'll be interesting to see. And then for them, biggest news wise, Deebo Samuel, their contract was demanding the trade. Now he's back. He actually reported to camp. He's just not practicing right now. So it's kind of interesting to see what they're going to do there. I know he was saying he's not playing without a new contract. He wants to be traded. What do you think kind of going forward what that's going to look like?
I think he'll sign. I think they're in the win now mode. They need someone for Trey Lance like that. I think they're going to pay him. He says he doesn't want to play 49ers. He got disrespected. I think you can hopefully get that back.
I think they can mend that pretty quick.
Mend that and try to, I don't know if they can beat the Rams, but I think if they can get a wild card spot, and with all the extra wild card spots now, you can definitely get in the playoffs. So, and they just got Nick Bosa for his 5th year. So after this, they're going to have to pay Nick Bosa too if they want to. So I think they should pay him, because if you don't, you have Brandon Ayuk as your number 1.
Yeah,
and to me, it's pretty interesting.
Debo's too. He's just more than a wide receiver. He did everything for him, running the football, catching the football. I know injuries kind of plagued his first couple of years, but he blew up on the scene last year. He's just do it all for them, and if he's healthy, I don't see why he's not going to do that again. Now, maybe they might take away some of the running opportunities that he had last year solely because he kind of has mentioned that he just wants to be a receiver. So that'll be interesting to see, but I think if he stays healthy, and he will finish top 5 with Trey Lance moving forward as a wide receiver this year. I know he finished 2 or 3 last year. It's hard to argue with what he did last year and how productive he was and everything. So, and then like you said, Ayuk, what a bust from last year.
He had his moments. Terrible start at the beginning. The guy in our league that had him felt terrible. And he had to drop him, then kind of got moved around. Had a couple of good games here and there. I did him for fantasy, football, daily fantasy. Really kills a lineup when you draft him. And he just put up zeros. But at the end of the year, he had some couple good weeks. I'm feeling I'm not off the Ayuk train yet. I think he's going to have a bounce back year, because I think you got to stop Deebo, and if you stop him, someone else has to step up. Kittle, if he can stay healthy, that's going to be him. But then Ayuk's going to be right there too.
Well, that's what. And if they use Deebo in that running back position a little more, I think 100% Brandon Ayuk, like we saw last year, because towards the end of the year is more on the back half of the year. It was Debo is going to run the ball. He's going to do this. He's going to do that, which I think opened up his receiving opportunities because everybody was so focused on Debo. And I think if George Kittle's back, we might see these big numbers pop up more, and he could easily finish top 20 in that system going forward. But I still think Debo, Kittle are the 1-2, and then you throw him in there at number 3 or 4 behind Mitchell too. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, he's coming his 3rd year, had a big first year, 2nd year, finished way better, still finished top 40, which, I mean, if how you look at it, he was barely on the field the first 5 games, maybe 50% or less of the snaps. But by the end of the year, it was 95 or more. So he's on the field, which is huge. And maybe it's just a trust thing. Something had to have happened because with Kyle Shanahan, it's just a weird coach. He's just smarter than all of us. There's no way to argue with what he's doing.
That's true. I agree with that one.
And then they also signed Ray McLeod from the Steelers this year. So that's kind of going to back in that one moving forward. And anything else on the 49ers as we move? Where do you think Jimmy G might end up? You think he stays, or do you think they trade him?
I think he stays. I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't think anyone's going to give anything for Jimmy G. I think they let him go or they keep him. I can see if they drop him, Seattle or someone. If I can see Browns drop Baker, Watson gets suspended for the whole season, pick up Jimmy G for the year.
Yep. I could see something like that where maybe they make a switch or something weird. It'll be interesting to see kind of what they do. But I think he's either going to stay on as a, like you said, backup, or they're going to drop him, or they have to either loosen up what they want for him or try to figure something out to where they can at least get something if they're going to keep him.
Yeah. Also to add, their center Mac retired too for the 49ers.
So it'll be interesting to see kind of what the 49ers do. I think they're the second best team in the division. I like them over the Cardinals moving forward. I just think Shanahan's a better coach than Cliff Kingsbury. And with all the stuff that happened with the Cardinals, has been kind of up and down years. So
agree.
We'll kind of move on, and we'll go ahead and get started with the Cardinals here. Looking at this roster here, more importantly, I guess if we talk about it, Kyler Murray, the drama with the Cardinals, deleting all his posts on Instagram, doing whatever he does. The pettiest, dumbest thing people are doing now is that kind of pouted his way into getting what he wanted. I think they traded, brought in Marquise Brown, signed him to a deal with DeAndre Hopkins being suspended for 6 games because of it was PEDs, right?
Yeah.
Being suspended for that. Cardinals lock in Brown for big extension. Looking forward at this team, Kyler Murray kind of fell off at the end of the year. Started off really hot. The team in general started off hot. We're one of the best teams. Then he gets hurt for a couple weeks, and then he comes back after that injury and just kind of wasn't the same from what we saw at the beginning of the year. Where do you see Kyler and going forward with Cliff Kingsbury? Do you think the acquisition of Marquise Brown elevates him or hurts him kind of moving forward? I know with having DeAndre out, I think those two would have been a good dynamic to have to start the year for Kyler. But with what they have now, AJ Green, Rondale Moore, and Marquise Brown for the first 6 games, as long as Zach Ertz signing a big deal, do you think Kyler Murray can repeat kind of what he did at the beginning of the year? Or do you think we're going to see more of what he did at the end of the year last year?
I feel like it's going to be a little bit in the middle. I don't think Murray's as good when Hopkins is not on the field. Marquise Brown had that big start last year for the Ravens. I was talking shit on him all early at the beginning of the season, and Brown really stepped up. And then he started dropping a few balls, just went downhill for the Ravens. Cardinals get him because I think they knew Hopkins was going to be suspended by then. So they went and got Marquise Brown. And then I don't like Kingsbury. I don't like him as a coach. I don't like how he runs his offense. I think what I like about this team is James Conner. Will James Conner be able to do what he did last year? I don't know. It's a good question. It's pretty much his backfield. You have Darrell Williams back there, but it's going to be pretty much James Conner. Is he going to be able to do what he did last year? I really don't think so. I think there's an opportunity for him to. He's going to get his touches. He's going to get his touchdowns. But I don't know. I'm not big on Marquise Brown. There is one player that I think I'm more on this team than anyone, and that's Rondale Moore. I think for him, if he's going to be the guy they wanted him to be when they drafted, this is the year for him to step up before Hopkins comes back. I think it's going to be him and Marquise Brown. I know you have AJ Green. AJ Green's he's old. He's going to be the third option still. Zach Ertz, good tight end. But I think this is when Rondale Moore steps up. I like Rondale Moore, and if I can get him later on in the draft at the end, or even pick him up off of waivers, he's going in about the 15th round, so it depends on when you're drafting. I think Rondale Moore is going to be a good keep, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he does and if he can step up.
That's what. So, looking at Kyler Murray, it'll be interesting to kind of see what's going to happen with him. Like you said, I think with DeAndre being out, that hurts because no matter what you say about DeAndre, it's going to be his 10th year in the league. He is older, but he's still that guy you throw the ball up to, he's going to go and get it. It's a reliable guy to have. I think bringing in Marquise will help a little bit for Kyler because, they did go to Oklahoma together and they did all that, but we've seen time and time again where Marquise Brown drops footballs, just plays sloppy, doesn't do what he should. But has every chance to succeed right away for this team. Marquise does at least. He should step in. He's projected to be their number one guy. I just don't know where you take him going forward. Especially 12-team league, you're looking maybe 4th, 5th, 6th round, I think, with Marquise, just because his stock might elevate solely because of DeAndre being out the first 6 games. I think, like you said, Rondale Moore's role has stepped up. Going to have to step up. Although we saw last year when Hopkins was out, we always thought Rondale was going to do something, and he didn't. But it is his 2nd year in the league. Growth is playing in those games is important. Finding out how to win routes in the league is completely different. To me, I just think it's going to be tough with this wide receiver core. I'm not huge on Marquise Brown. I liked what he did last year at the beginning of the year with Lamar. He was putting up good numbers. It's just it worries me now that what are they going to do? Because with the Ravens, he had Lamar. He is the biggest threat running the ball, I would say, in a quarterback position we've ever seen since Michael Vick. It changed everything. Kyler Murray, he's fast, he does it, but he's not a run first quarterback. He's openly admitted he does not like to run the ball that much. So to me, it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. I think Marquise Brown is their number one without Hopkins. I just want to see what happens with Rondale Moore. I'm afraid he won't. We're kind of going to see what happened last year, kind of get hidden into things, but it is his 2nd year going forward, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. And I think another big option will be Zach Ertz for them, who they signed to stay in at tight end, where we saw last year he kind of had some big games, carried the role, and I think he's only continued to grow there for them and be a reliable target for them. I think he'll be one that you see kind of maybe gets utilized more. Might go Marquise Brown, Ertz, than maybe Rondale Moore this year.
Yeah, I can definitely see that too. I think Zach Ertz is going to be those first 6 weeks. He might be a top 3 tight end, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just about how many targets he'll get, how many end zone targets he'll get. So I like that a lot, actually. I think Zach Ertz is going to be top 3 tight end beginning of the week. if Rondale Moore is supposed to be this guy, this is when he's going to step up. If he doesn't this whole year, especially with Hopkins out, when's he ever going to step up? I think that's when I'm pretty sure last year, Wesley had better games than Moore did when Hopkins was out. He was the one that was actually getting catches. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think like you said, Marquise Brown is that number one, but will it be old Marquise Brown where he's inconsistent, or is he going to be where at the beginning of the year last year where he was catching everything, beating the defense?
Well, that's what. And then just touching on it, when I looked at Ertz, Rondale Moore was hurt kind of at the end of the year last year. So he missed a couple games. But you look at Ertz's numbers to end the season: 7 targets, 11 targets, 13 targets, 9 targets, 10 targets. For a tight end, that's unexpected. And those numbers just continue to grow up. And I think he's going to continue to see kind of a workload like that this year, especially at the start with everything, because maybe they might focus more on Marquise Brown, thinking he's going to be their number one with the history that they've had. So that's something to keep an eye on for sure, with Zach Ertz potentially finishing top 3, starting for, I think he will stay top 5 probably throughout the year. There's just not a lot of tight ends. But with the workload that we saw last year, especially, he finished, where did he finish at overall for tight end? Because after getting traded from the Eagles, he finished 5 in PPR. And that's with a slow first half with the Eagles. So yeah, I expect him.
He finished 9th in tight ends overall, and that's the whole season.
Yeah. So, and to me, I think in PPR, if you're doing that and you had a bad year, Jalen Hurts, I think it's only going to continue to go up from there. And he talked about running back wise, James Conner kind of was that guy kind of for Pittsburgh at the start of his career. We saw a big fall off his last year in Pittsburgh. And then kind of had a resurgence year last year to help with Chase Edmonds going out. But it just seemed like James Conner was every time he touched the ball, he's scoring touchdowns. Do you think he can repeat these type of numbers that he did last year? Or do you think this was kind of like a one and done type of season for him?
I don't know. I think it's going to be a tougher year for sure. I think it's going to be the Cardinals are, I would say, the most interesting team out of like all the teams, because last 2 years they've had a hot start and then they did bad. Like they were 2 years ago, just came onto the show, then had a bad season. Last year did the same thing. I think it might be what James Conner does. If James Conner can be consistent, I think this Cardinals team can get back to where they were last year offensively. But if not, I don't know.
That's what it's going to be. I don't know. Like, he finished number 5 running back last year. To me, it's just like, it's a kind of a showing that we did not expect to see. He had 17 touchdowns last year, which is an insane amount of numbers. Like, if they're in the 5, they're giving the ball to James Conner, and he's probably more than likely going to score most, like, in those goal line situations. So, to me, I think, is he worth spending a top 2 pick on, like a top second round pick on? Do you think, or do you kind of wait and let him fall, just with the hesitance that he might not be able to get back to where he was?
I don't think so. I think right now he's going at the end of the 4th round.
Yeah.
I like, think that's a good
running back heavy leagues, like, where they are, the standard ones where people just go running back.
Honestly, how many touchdowns he had, I think you have to take that chance. You can't just pass up on those 17 touchdowns. You can't do it. Anytime they're between the end zone and the 5-yard line, he's getting the ball at least once, maybe even twice to get that touchdown. You're not giving the ball to Darrell Williams. You're not giving any of them. It's going to go to James Conner, and I think you got to take that chance.
And that with Edmonds leaving too, it's pretty much his backfield. Yeah. I know they did draft Keontae Ingram from USC, who had a very productive career over at USC. And they kind of want him to step in and take over that Edmonds role, which I think is fully capable of it. But Darrell Williams will be tough. I think he's going to stay on as a third string back. I think it's going to go Connor, number 1, heavy load. But I think you might see this Keontae Ingram sprinkled in. He can catch the ball. He's a very good runner. USC, he was the top back there last year. To me, it's just going to be one of those you got to keep an eye out for to see what are they going to utilize Keontae with? Is he going to be more pass catcher? Is he going to be spill back where Connor gets most of it? Or is Connor going to be the heavy workload where he does both with running the football and catching the football? Because at the end of the year, he started to catch the ball more, but that's also because Edmonds was out. I just don't know if they want to throw him in there to do that, or if they're going to try to just keep kind of do the split back where the faster, shiftier guy will be able to catch the ball more. But outside of that, I don't like Cardinals are just a weird team. I just can't put my finger on them. Like we expected Rondale Moore to have big games last year, never did. We kind of we're all DeAndre Hopkins was just a mystery year after being so dominant. So I don't know. It's a weird thing. Kyler Murray, looking forward, do you see finishing top 5 projected this year in your opinion as quarterback?
I don't think so. I just think the Murray and the Cardinals, they're in a bad spot right now. And I don't know if they will ever be fully there. Like I said, I don't like Kingsbury for coach. I just think something's got to change. I don't know what it is. And it's going to be interesting because they're going to be on Hard Knocks this year. So we're going to see. I wonder if they're going to try to play into this like Murray is against it. He came out and said he doesn't want to run that much. And that's kind of like how these top 5 quarterbacks, like how they get a lot of their points is because they're able to run and throw the ball. And so if Murray's like, I'm not running the ball, that takes away a good chunk of points for him. And is he going to be able to throw the ball like a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Matt Stafford? And I don't think it's happening.
There's a lot of comparisons of like him with that group. He's not even close to breathing the same air as them. Like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes are way up there. Rodgers, Brady, they're just fancy wise and just quarterback wise overall. They're way up there where I just think Kyler is still learning and growing. And to me, you hate to say it, but I still think his height plays a huge role in anything that he does. Like we saw when he played the Rams, he threw that one pick to the lineman because he couldn't throw it over his head.
He kept getting knocked down. It is true.
Yeah, and he's small. He takes a lot of beatings. It is what it is. Like he is a shifty, like one of the shiftiest players I've ever seen. He has a huge arm too, but it's just I'm always interested to kind of see like you said, is this like little problem they had going to linger all year and make it an issue moving forward, and especially like Hard Knocks are only going to show the good stuff, and I'm sure by the end of it, we're all going to be thinking Rondale Moore should be a 2nd round pick kind of thing, like in a year with Hard Knock. But I don't know. Cardinals will be interesting. Winning this division, I think Rams. I think it goes Rams, 49ers, Cardinals, Seahawks. I don't think Seahawks will do anything productive.
I think I agree with that, Sam. I think Rams win it. I think 49ers get into the playoffs. I don't think Cardinals make the playoffs this year. I really don't. And I think in Seattle going to have a top 5 pick next year, if not top 3.
Unless Drew Lock just proves us wrong, but those Mizzou quarterbacks just a waste of space.
No,
can't stand Mizzou quarterback. It's always overhyped. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, looking at it, it's going to be like I just think if you draft Connor, you got to go with Ingram just in case Connor gets hurt. But outside of like the Cardinals, it's pretty much. Here's a question: when do you take Hopkins now that he's out 6 weeks?
Hopkins, I go 6 weeks. I don't go till I think I almost want to put it as Michael Thomas was last year.
That's what I was going to say. Is it kind of like that where we're unsure what it's going to look like? Well, but this one at least it's not injury. We know he's coming back. It's just.
So I think 8, 9, you might even be able to do 7 because he's coming back. So I think you got to get your 2 wide receivers first, and then when maybe you can, if you don't like taking, or you got your 2 running backs, and you just kind of want to either tight end or what, I think that's when you go Hopkins.
That's what if he can drop to you late, 6th round, I would take that.
Yep,
he's coming off injury. I think it will help his 6 weeks. Extends that rehab, and we might see the healthiest DeAndre we've seen in a while because of the 6 weeks off. So I think if you can wait to take him, like I said, I would at least for sure get 2 guys that I can rely on, and then I'm picking him up late to sit on my bench for 6 weeks, and then I can just flex play the rest of it with either a running back or like a flex like Van Jefferson. You're just hoping he has big weeks early rather than later.
Yep.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I think Marquise Brown will go first for them. Then, do you think Rondell or DeAndre? Who would you take a chance on first?
DeAndre for sure. It's actually Brown is like only going like 4 picks before Hopkins.
Yeah, I saw that. It's not.
It's like around the same. So I think you go Marquise Brown. You go for the one that's actually playing the first 6 weeks. But I think you go Hopkins. Rondell Moore is like someone you can get late, or maybe if you kind of know your league and they're just like, no, I'm off him.
Yeah.
Like they saw what he did, then maybe you can get him after the draft.
Marquise Brown, like I said, it's hard knocks. If they're on it, it's going to be something where you might see in drafts where his stock rises just because of he's probably making plays, kind of like what we saw with CD Lamb last year. Like, now CD deserved all the hype that he got, but I think we over exaggerate a little too much just because of what we saw on the highlights and what we heard from camps and everything. And that might be the same with Marquise. Yeah. So something to keep an eye out for. But that is our breakdown of the NFC West. We will work on doing the rest of the divisions throughout the rest of the summer here, as well as we're going to do a mock draft, as well as include like some future picks that we'll have. So division winners. Last year we did like teams to win over under games,
over unders, MVPs, like player rewards, stuff like that.
And this year we're actually going to keep track of it, kind of see how we do with our games last year too. That was not fun. So it was awful year betting, but hopefully we can always bounce back. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. And then NFC, you want to do AFC West, or should we hop around to the NFC North next?
We should do NFC. Just do it all.
We'll finish out NFC. So we'll expect to do the NFC North next week, and are probably coming up later this week or next week. So just keep an eye out for that. But we appreciate everybody for listening. Check us out on YouTube, everything. We have Twitter and everything. Check us out there. We'll be better at posting everything this week, but just subscribe, keep up with our content, and then we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Deuces.
See ya.